It is crazy what you can do with a forestry mulcher, even with no experience. That is what the land looked like when I bought it, the full 10 acres. Okay, some previous pictures. We get into, I had to chart this thing out on Google Maps just to have an idea of where I would want to put a house. That little blue dot would be where you'd want to put a pool. Everything didn't end up exactly in those locations. That's the driveway in the gray. But I just wanted to have an idea of where I wanted to go. This is what the raw land started to look like when I bought it. And I pre-chainsaw. So I went in there with the chainsaw before I rented the forestry mulcher. That's my son that was helping me out. And just to cut down some trees so I could get a visual. This land was so dense that you can't see in front of your face. All right, that's a little accident I have with the chainsaw. That's a separate story. But so I started to get an idea of kind of where I wanted the house. I actually roped off or stringed off some perimeter just so I kind of knew. I tied some bands around some trees just to get an idea of what I wanted to end up with. And so I rented this forestry mulcher. It comes with the forestry mulching head on it. It's basically a skid steer with a forestry mulcher, and you just call your local rental shop up and ask for that. All right, this is very early on. This is eventually where the house would go, but I was so proud that I just took some pictures because, like, you're literally turning a forest into something you can actually see across, which is crazy. That's what you're looking at a lot of the times whenever you're in this machine. And you just take your time and this thing just churns and churns and churns, okay? That was the actual machine that they put the forestry mulcher on. And so what we're going to get into is what it actually starts to look like, which is mulch, when you're done with it, okay? And so this is a Google photo. This would be after, with the home site there. We are stringing off a home site at this point right here. And man, just a weekend, you can end up with, I can build on this place. I can see, all right? And it's quite incredible what you can do. This is some dirt work just to get ready for the house pad, just ready for the concrete. And it turns up into mulch, and then eventually the grass grows, which we will get into in a little bit. But these are photos of just basically a time lapse of what it's going to look like. We kind of did some fun stuff with a zip line and a tree house before we were fully ready to build, and clearing the land allows you to kind of do some of that. You can kind of get around. You can see, I mean, that was a forest. Everything you see right there, full trees. And so we planned on building our house just in the middle of a forest, and we found the land just that had tons of trees, tons of wildlife, and we got there. Now, if you want to see some of the information about building your own house literally by yourself, then you can click that link. This is part of our zip line that is from tree to tree, ends up being 300 feet. We just did a lot of fun stuff before we started building, and really as we were building. We created these pathways, or tunnels as I'll call them, when you see like a walkway with a tree canopy over it. A lot of cool stuff that you can do with the forestry mulcher. The great thing about the forestry mulcher is you can carve out paths through the forest that will also be just wide enough for a mower. And in my case, you'll see later on with a tractor, the tractor will go right through there and mow, or a zero-turn mower. So we started having some fun with some go-karts and things like that. And it's just kind of having some fun while you develop the land, while you build the land. That's the beginning stages of a pole barn, which you can also click on and see how I did that. Using some cool materials, some nice materials, very simple build. I did that before we started building the house, just to store some materials in. But when you clear some stuff, you're able to actually start enjoying the land as you go. And this is a perfect example of that. Get out there and have some campfires, just, do some fun stuff and goof around and just make memories in general. Then you can start actually building the house, and I have a huge video and big playlist on that also, and just start making those memories. And we built our house by ourselves. All right, it's a lot of work, but it was fun along the way, and we learned as we went. So you can see when you clear some land and you get some snow, man, it just really starts to be something crazy. And like all that dirt you see there, none of that dirt was brought in. That's just from the land, just from clearing the land and then doing some work with the land. And then you see like a redbud tree that will pop up in the spring. And all this you see right here was just 100% forest. And so now you have room to mow around, but you still have plenty of mature trees. For the nature people, I'm a tree person, and so you leave enough trees and enough nature to really enjoy, but you also can navigate around the land. And we didn't want to buy land where we couldn't navigate around. So we have 10 acres, which is a good amount, but it's not enormous. But we wanted to use that 10 acres. We wanted to enjoy that 10 acres. And so we were able to, with this forestry mulcher, able to clear enough land. And in some spots we cleared a lot, like the house spot up by the barn, and some other spots, and then in some other cases we just cleared enough to, just to mow and just to have a whole lot of nature. And we did add a baby along the way, so that put a little delay in our plans. But we were able to work with it and just keep going. And we set up a little campsite. Kids love to camp out, so you find some wildlife that you never knew existed out there when you start clearing some land and can just get around and see stuff. Um, that is a tractor that I bought. I got a good loan on it, and I had a belly mower put on it, which I'll have in a little bit. You start seeing some wildlife. This wildlife, they want to walk on the same paths that you walk on, so you start seeing tracks and things like that. And and then the winter starts to come, and you're starting to mow again. Everything's not fully cleared. I mean, you will chip away as you go, but it's fully enjoyable at this point. Whenever you actually turn seasons after you mow, after you clear the land, and then you can actually start continuing to mow, and then it really starts to materialize with your entire property, and you start to really navigate around the property and just fully enjoy that clearing that you've had. What you're going to start to see is land that in these pictures that has been mowed a couple of times already. It's not fully cleared out. You will see some piles of like trees that are up against a group of trees, things like that. But you're going to see land that is fully mowable. And now it's not 10 acres of mowing. There's going to be, especially toward the back of the property, which we'll get to in a little bit, you will see giant groups of just fully wild nature that are still left there. We wanted a property that was private around the perimeter, and then we wanted pockets of full untouched nature within the property also, which you will see, groups of trees, groups of nature, things like that. And but also be able to use the land and have enough clearing where you can do things that you want to do. We have plans for additional structures. That's the main house right there, that you start to see. You see all of that right there. Everything you see right there used to be a forest. Everything you see used to be a forest. And so that's just about a couple of years after the land clearing, and while we were chipping away at the house and building the house and things like that. And that's grass. We have no sod that was store-bought. All of that's just natural, that just grew back in after the land clearing. And so you will be surprised at how much grass actually grows just on its own after you clear the land and after sunlight can now get to the soil. It's really kind of surprising when you start to see grass that you now have to mow, but it's manageable, and if you have a good machine, That's the other view of our zip line. If you have a machine, and mine's just a belly mower on a tractor that can kind of mow kind of high off the ground when you in spots that you want to, then it really makes mowing almost enjoyable. It's not too terrible, as you can see. I mean, you're gonna mow through paths, and you'll start to see these paths that I was talking about, these tunnels that would be through trees. And this is a winter time. So in the summertime, you can imagine all of these trees with full bloom, leaves on them, and just how crazy that would look with in full bloom. And I wanted to show you a lot of pictures and make this video in the wintertime because you can still see how cool it looks even in the wintertime and the privacy of the entire property. In the summertime, when leaves are on the trees, not the cedar trees, but when you have trees that are blooming, I mean, the privacy just it's almost overwhelming. You feel and look like you are just dropped in the middle of a forest. And even in the wintertime, which is all of this right here, these pictures were around December, January, and all of the wintertime you still have a bunch of privacy. Now, if you don't get to some things like this where I had tree piles, then you might have to come in with a little chainsaw or just some snippers and snip those before you mow. And so with this tractor, it does everything I need to do as far as mowing is concerned. And there's a kind of a close-up view of the belly mower, which is 60-inch. So that's about as big as you can get without doing something massive commercial. But it mows like a champ, and you can lower that thing down, and it can be just like your front yard in a residential area if you want it to be. So you start to get deer tracks, and you start to get cool stuff from wildlife when you get the land cleared. And so you see some pockets of big clearing, and then you'll start to see some pockets of just full trees like this right here. You just leave enough wild, and then you just kind of mowing little paths around them. And later on, if you want to clear some more, you can clear some more. But you don't want to just go crazy and just clear the whole thing from step one. You want to, like this is the back of the property, the farthest from the street. So, you want to clear enough land where you can get to all parts of your property, but you don't want to overdo it. Just so you can't just plant a tree, a 30-year-old tree, a mature tree. So you need to be careful about what you clear and be smart about it. So that was what our goal was. But we have all these paths, we have all this mowing area, and like I said, everything you see on this entire video from front to back was just 100% forest. You couldn't walk through it without just hacking your way through it like a jungle. Okay, so everything you see is clearing that was done by this forestry mulcher in a weekend, in just a weekend. So in total hours of runtime, I got 10 hours of runtime on the machine. So everything you see was done by this one rental. And then after that, that's some deer droppings. After that, after the forestry mulcher, then you'll mow when the growing season comes along. If you skip a whole mowing season and you go, like you skip 1 or 2 years, then it's going to be a little bit difficult to mow. But if you have access to a mower, or you already have a mower or a tractor, or can borrow one, then it's really not too terrible. You can mow it maybe twice during the mowing season and just keep it manageable until you get out there. If that's the plan, like us, we didn't live out there for 2 or 3 years because we were developing the land, we were building the house. So if you're able to just mow it probably a couple times when things start to get tall, just to buy yourself some time, then that's perfectly fine. And so this is almost 3 years after the initial land clearing right here, and it wasn't mowed the entire time. It was mowed when it needed to be, whenever you just had to drop what you were doing and mow it. but eventually, you know, it's going to be, you'll see grassy areas. Eventually it'll be all grass, and it will start to look like basically like a national park eventually. Whenever sunlight can really get to the ground, you start to mow it regularly. You have grass that, you know, just multiplies, and you just start having a nice grassy area. Rainwater gets to it, and none of this has been watered. I don't have any plans for anything to be watered. Just let it grow, and you start to enjoy. You just basically start to enjoy being encapsulated by nature. And coming up in a little bit, there's a video of just kind of what it would feel like. And it's on a tractor, but what it would feel like mowing this place, and just navigating 7 or 8 feet of clearing, or like this tunnel that I'm talking about, coming up. So you start to see a land clearing adjacent to the house, and then you make a left turn up here, and you are back at the house. So you'll hit these pockets of clearings, and you kind of want to have an idea of, do I want this clearing next to the house, an extra play area, an extra area to do things, and but yeah, you wind your way back through these tunnels, and you eventually get back to the main house, and so now you see kind of the views from the house itself. You know, things are generally a little more cleared around the house and next to the house, and you kind of get more wild as you go out to the perimeter, depending on what your land looks like and what you want it to look like in the end. But you know, what's great is all of this is totally doable by yourself. You don't need an assistant, you don't need any help. You need to kind of take it slow at the beginning just to kind of get comfortable with the machine. Necessarily have to have any experience, which I didn't. You just kind of feel your way out. You want to be careful and kind of take it slow, and then you'll feel really comfortable with it as you go. So this is totally doable by yourself, and you can turn a raw piece of land into something you dream of, and totally be awesome for your family for generations to come.